Okay, Char, we're live on YouTube. I'm going to resume recording because if anything happens, we don't want to lose. If the YouTube stream goes bad or something, we still have the recording and we can post that.
Right.
Hey, Daniel. Hey, Tim. We got participants here.
Good morning.
Char, hey, co-host.
Hello.
Good morning.
All right. Char and Tim, you guys are co-hosts. I'm doing that mainly because we had problems with my internet yesterday, and I don't want to drop the entire stream or something. So
Right.
if anything happens to me and I disappear, this meeting's going to go forward. We are recording and we're live on YouTube, and y'all can take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. We'll give everyone just another minute or two to kind of trickle in before we get going.
Sounds good. Yeah, this week we're a little last minute with our speaker, but we do have one lined up for our next meeting in 2 weeks, so we'll get the word out earlier, which will be good. Hi, Karim. Thanks for joining the call.
Hey there. Yeah, last time I couldn't join because we were in Spain with the team, but yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you had a good time in Spain.
That was pretty cool.
Nice.
We flew in the entire team.
Wow, that's fun.
Yeah, it's good to meet each other once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Have remote workers, as you know.
Right.
All right. Well, it is 8:02, so I'm just going to go ahead and kick us off here. 1 second. All right. Can everyone see my screen as we follow along here?
Yes, looks great.
All right, sounds good. Well, yes, welcome everyone to the Identity Special Interest Group. And today is, May 18th. And today we will be doing a couple things, starting with working group status updates, followed by a presentation on post-quantum cryptography by Vipin Bharathan. I think I saw him just come in, so welcome, Vipin. Do you want to give us a quick introduction to your talk today?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather go straight into the talk when the time is ripe. I just, created a short set of slides for this, which I will share with the group after my talk.
All right, sounds good. Well, as we usually do, we're going to start off with some working group updates from some other groups working on open source technologies. Starting off, it looks like the Indie Contributors Working Group, this is a future meeting, so it looks like they have not met since our last meeting, unless anyone can correct me on that.
Yeah, we met last week. And yeah, I can give a brief update. We, on the sovereign node pipeline, the pipeline is in place, updating documentation. So very close to done on that and excited to get that over the finish line. We also talked about the URSA end of life and the way that impacts Indy is that the BLS signatures portion will move into Indy with its Python wrapper. And so there's work happening on publishing on the publishing pipeline and updating the existing projects to switch over. We also had a presentation from Stephen Curran on tombstoning, which is high on the priority for the roadmap of Indy. And tombstoning refers to it's a mark associated with the transaction that means the transaction shouldn't be returned if it's requested in for read access. And this is helpful when you have private or legal data on the ledger that should not be there. or if you want to remove access to transactions after a certain amount of time so that people don't use test networks longer than they should. And so, yeah, went over some past approaches and some potential solutions. So that was interesting to hear about. And then we also went through and did a bunch of very satisfying cleanup on Node and Plenum repos, closing PRs that are no longer relevant. So lots of good progress there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Char. So it looks like the Hyperledger Aries group met just yesterday. Was anyone able to attend the Aries working group meeting?
Yes, I was. The talk was mostly about, well, there was some talk about Bitcoin V2, I believe, but the majority of the call was spent on well, the discussion around moving the Aries project to the Open Wallet Foundation. That discussion was that was not nearly finished at all, so that will probably continue next week. Or no, it's actually on the agenda to finish it or to continue next week. But that was what was discussed.
All right, very interesting. Thank you, Kareem. The Aries bifold user group looks like they met on the 9th. Was anyone able to attend that call and would like to summarize for us? All right. Looks like they're doing some updating to NDVDR and looking at a 2023 summit. If you'd like more information, you can find the notes there. Aries Cloud Agent Python user group met on the 16th. Was anyone able to attend this meeting that would like to summarize it for us?
Yeah, I was there. I gave a brief update on the AnonCreds update in Akapai project. So we're wrapping up the revocation work, which has just been a lot more complicated than expected, working on moving logic out of the old Indy components and refining the new AnonCreds admin API endpoints. And yeah, getting that wrapped up soon. And then also talked about the webhooks issue that got fixed. Yeah, where you have the Akapai mediator and Redis and instance versus tenant settings.
All right. Appreciate it, Char. Looks like Aries Framework JavaScript met on the 11th. Was anyone able to attend this session?
Yeah, well, we actually met 2 hours ago again.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a busy day. Today the talk was mostly well, I hosted a discussion on the future architecture of Aries Framework JavaScript, and this is partly related to the discussions that have been going on well, regarding moving Aries to the Open Wallet Foundation, but the discussion is mainly about, okay, what do we because if you look at the structure of Aries Framework JavaScript, what lives inside the core package, what has its own package, what is a separate module, etc., etc. It's a bit confusing. Like we have moved away from Indy SDK, so Indy SDK has been moved to its own package. DITCOM AnonCreds recently, that logic was moved to its own package, but then still in the core package we have logic related to the W3C credential format. So it was basically a discussion on, okay, how do we go forward, and what are the rules around yeah, where what code lives, basically. Also to be continued.
No, absolutely. All right, awesome. Appreciate it, Kareem.
Cheers.
Looks like AnonCreds met on the 8th. Was anyone able to attend the Hyperledger AnonCreds meeting that would like to summarize it for us? Okay, looks like there was updates to the V2 working group and some other fun things happening. You can click the link later for full details. Trust over IP looks like they haven't met in a little bit. Governance stack. I think we also met on the 4th, but I'm not sure if we covered this governance stack TOIP meeting. Was anyone able to attend this session? All right, it looks like they mainly looked at a debrief from IW and then looking at the governance requirements task force. This is older stuff. It's March 16th. We've met since then. It looks like the diff interoperability group met on the 17th of May. Was anyone able to attend this session? All right. Well, yeah, they have Zoom recordings that you can find here if you want to learn a little more about that. That has not met. All right, and I believe that concludes our working group updates, unless anyone else has any last minute additions they'd like to add or interesting meetings that they sat on recently that they'd like to tell the group about.
Just, I think we've announced this before, but May 31st, there's an non-creds workshop. And I think there's a link at the top to register if you're interested. Oh, thanks, Sean. And then also in 2 weeks on this call, we will have another speaker. We'll be joined by Wenjin Chu, who will talk about the Open Wallet Foundation. So I hope you all are able to join us for that.
I had an announcement about the non-creds workshop and Char beat me to it. So thanks for that. Joking. Note to everybody, the community architects at Hyperledger, we have recently done contributor maintainer check-ins with the Fabric community. We are starting to do that with the indie community, and we're going to want to do it with the Aries community. One of the amazing things about open source is no one needs to ask permission to take this code and run with it. One of the frustrating things about being a community architect at Hyperledger is we don't know who's running with our code. So we are working with some community members to identify teams out in the wild who are using Indie. If you know folks who would like to talk about their experience with Aries, the Aries community, what they're doing, let me know on Discord. We would love to talk to folks. This is an effort to make sure that we are checking in with the community and talking to folks. Also, third thing, I'm going to put this into the wiki for the next identity SIG call. If you have news about Aries, let me know on Discord. We want to make sure that we are signal boosting all the amazing work that's coming out of the Indie and the Aries and the non-creds community. So if you've got an implementation that's going live, if you've got a cool use case, if you're doing something, just let me know. Thanks, Char. Thanks, Tim.
No, thank you. All right, I think without further ado, we will hand it over to Vipin.
Hold on. Okay, I probably should share my screen because I have a little presentation here. Are you able to see the screen?
Yep,
I hope so.
looks good.
All right. So the agenda is very simply why post-quantum cryptography. This is occasioned by the publication of NIST 1800-38A. If those numbers don't make sense to you, they don't make sense to me either, but we know that of that series, this is only the first document. 38A implies that. And it is open for commons, and it's a very, very simple document. It's essentially an executive summary of what whatever's been going on. There are a number of candidates for PQC, but they are all stuck with in commons and various other activities inside NIST. And NIST, as you know, National Institute of Science and Technology, will be the ones to spearhead this move for the United States. And some people, of course, are suspicious of NIST because they think some of the algorithms have deliberate or otherwise backdoors. But this is what we have today, other than the commercial enterprises. And once it comes out of NIST, it will be adopted by everybody. Then the third one will be a look at the applicability of this particular document or this particular set of guidelines to our identity solutions and the next steps according to NIST. So why PQC? Why post-quantum computing? Advances, as we all know, with the quantum hype, advances will break existing algorithms. That includes all the algorithms that are currently in use across, a lot of the ecosystem, and a lot of use in various applications, including banking, including TLS, including, so basically all network libraries, all, all cryptographic libraries, all network interactions, and all wallets, everything. But is this hype or is this real? This is the other problem, because we have been hearing about QC for breaking the factoring huge numbers is still far away because of a couple of limitations of quantum computing. One is that you need enormous amounts of error correction circuits for this particular use case, and we are still in the 200, 300 qubit state, which is not enough with millions of error correcting circuits. So is it still an engineering problem or a physics problem? Meaning, is it much more basic, like it's not going to happen because it breaks certain fundamental laws of physics, or is it an engineering problem? Well, it appears that many people think it is an engineering problem, but it's a very, very hard engineering problem, only solvable by probably state actors in the beginning, and then later on big companies. And it's not going to be released into the open, at least in the beginning. In the next 10 to 20 years, who knows? So the point is that since any large-scale deployment of PQC will need a long lead time, because we have observed that in other algorithms, it takes about 8 to 10 years for libraries, tools, methods, processes. So it's not going to happen tomorrow, even if it may happen. But so I have read from both extremes of the debate, meaning people saying it's possible to create something that'll break RSA, and some people saying it's never going to be possible, at least not with the scale of quantum computing needed because of the physics problems. Anyway, the NIST 1838A is basically an executive summary. The new algorithms, of course, there are several candidates already proposed. They need to be resistant to both classical and quantum computers. It is not going to be a drop-in replacement because there are differences in, various aspects, which means that serious engineering has to take place in order to put these new algorithms into context. And the new algorithms are not mature enough. They have several problems with speed, with the setting up, all the steps mentioned here. So there may be multiple touch points within every app. Usually the application programming people do not have control over the algorithms because it's always sourced from the outside and then maybe coded up. But, usually it should be, for us anyway, it should be more of a process. First, a survey, identify where and how public key algorithms are used, non-creds, in the areas, DITCOM, everything else. And here is an important piece of information: dangers due to store and break. That means all the encrypted traffic or significant encrypted traffic can be stored somewhere and broken at a later time. So if that traffic is not important, let's say 20 years down the line, then it doesn't matter. But if it is, then it's a possibility that it could be broken then and used for other purposes. So they are going to produce a set of tools into identifying the quantum vulnerable algorithms for these three types of code bases: cryptographic libraries, network transport layer security, and applications, like every application, including wallets, everything else. So maybe we can even do a simple, identification of what are used in our set of libraries or things under the Hyperledger umbrella, just to prepare. So the next step is release of 1838B and 1838C. B is going to be more for program managers, and C is mostly for IT professionals, which means people who are deploying the algorithm. Initial interoperability and performance testing will cover all these various things that I've mentioned here, including HSMs, which should send a shiver down the spines of most people who rely on HSMs for any kind of security. So these are references. Any questions you can ask me and I will try to answer if I can. My exposure to cryptography is long, but not deep. But, I did write a seed function for initial versions of the Audible player, which has a patent. Unfortunately, they have the patent, but that's my introduction to cryptography, maybe back in the 90s. And the algorithm I came up with or the process rather, and the way in which it was implemented in software did, let's say, gain the approval of many wise cryptographers, of which I don't claim to be one. Then later on, I've also worked with the ZKP standardization efforts, and as a chair of the identity working group earlier, I had multiple people speaking on this topic, and I have engaged with them mostly on my own level, which is obviously not as deep as a mathematical cryptographer or developing new algorithms. That's about it, and I'm stopping the share, and you can ask me any questions, and I will be glad to answer any that I can.
That was really interesting. Thank you for presenting. Do you know how an algorithm is determined to be quantum vulnerable?
Well, it is mostly based on the fact that if it involves factoring huge numbers, then it's vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, like lattice cryptography, certain, I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways in which, you know, that it is, I mean, for example, hashing functions are still resistant to quantum.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if I have a hash, significantly large hash, it would be, so what is the attack? The attack is to produce another you know, let's say string that would hash to the same value, which is not the original string, original set of binaries, whatever, a book, the whole complete works of Shakespeare, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Is a string. So that is resistant. So Merkle trees probably are resistant, but most of the signature algorithms and the Diffie-Hellman stuff and the, you know, session key, like establishment. I don't know about the symmetric keys algorithms, but I would assume they are too, but mostly it's the asymmetric key, the private public key type algorithms that are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Thank you.
All right.
Quick,
Anybody?
this
Yeah.
is Tim Bloomfield. Here's a quick question on the. I'll read the NIST article. I haven't read that, but any talk there about zero knowledge proof post quantum algorithms?
I haven't seen that because there are a bunch of candidates that have been proposed since 2016, 2017. I haven't seen anything to do with well, because zero knowledge also, you know, it's heavily dependent on hashing. So in a sense, there may be some inbuilt protections, but I haven't looked at the details of that. And anyway, like I said, I'm not exactly qualified, but just a interested amateur with long exposure to this stuff.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was curious. So it sounds like you've read about the extremes of the opinions about what this will mean for the world. Where do you land on that? What do you think about the possibility or impossibility of quantum computing breaking many of our current algorithms?
Impossible.
Mm.
Well, only because at scale, interference is a problem, right? If you have multiple quantum qubits, then I mean, right now, most of the quantum computing is done in very specialized labs at very low temperatures. There are guys who have claimed to have done stuff, in the, let's say, at normal temperatures. Otherwise, you have to go to absolute zero, somewhere around there, in order for most of this to work. But there have been some advances, and there, of course, have been multiple claims of quantum supremacy, but mostly debunked on serious quantum computing sites and blogs from professors. So, I mean, it is possible to do some quantum computing for doing things like optimization problems, quantum annealing, for example, which is basically trying to find a minimum or maximum, local or global, or those kind of problems, which are basically very useful. I mean, very useful. But factoring is another game, and that's why it requires, of course, nobody is going to come and say, "Oh, don't do it," because we have seen those predictions fail a lot, in the past. But there are also predictions which the sun is not going to rise in the West in my lifetime, for example. So there are some extreme predictions that you can make, but there's all kinds of extinction events waiting for us, including AI. And everything else. So there are people making predictions about, all carbon life forms are going to be wiped out in 20 years, which I don't think is going to happen. But hey, I'm just a carbon life form trying to be positive.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
We'll
So-
follow this up with the, sorry, Karim, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, so I don't know if you mentioned this. I was briefly gone in between because there was someone at my door. But one thing like I'm asking or I'm wondering about, and my knowledge is not too good to answer that myself, is so like right now we're using all kinds of cryptography to encrypt stuff in our wallet and in our storage, which, as I understand it correctly, some of those algorithms can potentially break or be broken when quantum computing is a little further ahead. So, like, is it possible to sort of re-encrypt your wallet in order to protect against those kinds of future threats? Or would this, for instance, mean that we would have to start with a completely fresh wallet, and like as soon as we have those algorithms that are quantum or post-quantum, should we like start over in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very serious topic under discussion by various people. Of course, they have been discussing mostly on things like, because the UTXO set in Bitcoin, for example, is forever. So you cannot, so how do you transition? How do you make the leap starting to protect some of the most vulnerable parts. So some of the ideas that are contained in Kerry, for example, key rotation, which shouldn't be just key rotation, it could be method rotation too, right? I mean, because you can't just, I mean, it's against key compromises, but now you'll have to change the method too to PQC. In the case of wallets, I think the action can be quite rapid, like you said, meaning, but you have to have a plan. You have to have a way of looking at it very carefully and saying, how do you migrate? And this is the aim of this talk, to at least take a look, right? So that we can say, okay, if PQC becomes a reality, meaning, there are some standard tractable algorithms, meaning something that does not consume your whole computer or is not incredibly difficult to set up, which is an engineering problem, right? I mean, once you have the PQC and once you have a bunch of very serious companies. In fact, there is a list in that publication. It is like the who's who of all the big corporations: Microsoft, Google, Alphabet, Amazon, blah blah blah. So they have tremendous resources. So they will. Somebody is going to come up with a library. And as far as we are concerned, we'll just have to be concentrating on the process. That means identifying the weakness right now and then trying to, let's say, get it into a transition state. I think Dr. Stornetta, who's one of the two authors quoted multiple times on I think thrice or in Nakamoto's Bitcoin paper, has proposed some ways to go forward, meaning, replace algorithms, replace certain key things and migrate. It will probably be a hard fork of some sort. And the problem is the signatures backing the UTXO. How will that be handled? But for the wallet, like you said, that may be easier.
Yeah, so another thing I was just thinking about is because I mean the wallet partly, right, is just has credentials and all that kind of stuff. But another interesting thing I think would be how to deal, and I don't think this is a problem we have right now at this point, but let's say you have like long-lasting DITCOM relationships with a certain party, like how, because I mean the whole point, the whole thing that enables building of the building of trust over a DITCOM connection are the keys in the end. And it's like, how would you, is it possible? I have no idea. It's just an open question here, but like, would it be, can we think of something to indeed, well, basically rotate the key, but also the key method and still maintain that trust relationship? Or would we like need to create a new connection and somehow, and I think that's pretty doable, transfer that trust from one connection over to the other? Random thought, but interesting, very interesting.
Well, ultimately, it is a method. It is methods for transferring trust. Maybe it has to be a one-way street in the sense that you can't do it twice, the same thing. Meaning, obviously, once you say, okay, this is the method is now transformed into a PQC, you shouldn't be able to go back and say, oh, I want to do it again, because then you're not sure, especially after the passage of time, that the second is, this is all going to be based on trust anyway, in a certain sense, but we have to leave very few openings or gaps for misuse. So, I think there's a lot of people thinking about this stuff, about transitioning. How do you change basic cryptographic, the armature, basically you're changing the engine of the car as the car is running, sort of. So we have to have a way of doing it. And I'm sure, this is also in the realm of engineering problems. You had something else to say, Karim?
No, I just love that analogy, like of changing the engine of a running car. That's exactly what it is.
Well, it's simply put, but yeah, I think there are going to be some interesting developments, but I may not live to see them.
So is there a good question to all of us, like, is there actually sort of a working group, or no, well, I guess it's too soon for a task force, but like, I know there's a lot of people looking at migration, but like in Aries or Hyperledger specific, like, are there people working on this, and how do we that's like, what are possible approaches to migrating? Is it too soon to do that? Is it too early, or?
Well, there is that whole forward key thinking, that is in both. I think Kerry's got that, but there is no formal working group or any kind of. I think unless we get the tools to start even scanning the code for QV, that is quantum vulnerable algorithms, we can't really make headway. But the NIST team is going to publish a lot of material, including processes and ways in which this switch can happen. And maybe it's time to at least, I could write up a blog or something about this, and then we see how it develops.
Yeah, it's just that I've heard this this term around, but I don't think like there is this awareness is big enough. And then again, like it also depends on how soon this becomes a real threat. But as we've seen with AI, things can go very rapidly all at once. So
yeah, the techniques for developing ChatGPT 4 and 5 were around 10 years ago, but similar techniques for quantum scaling, for factoring, doesn't seem to be around. I don't know. I may be looking in the wrong place. But not everything is the same, right? Meaning, just pointing to past rapidity in development in one field does not give you a clue to rapidity in another field, I feel, because people always bring up various analogies. Analogy is great, except when it's not. Anyway, Daniel, are you working on something similar or something to do with this stuff, Mr. Backenheimer? Or is he just hanging out? Anyway, I will follow up maybe later with some thoughts on this, and Sean can help me.
Thank you very much. This was very interesting.
Yeah, really interesting discussion and presentation. Thank you.
All right. We didn't discuss much about the transition to the new SIG and what it means. I don't know. Did you, Char? Sorry.
No worries. We talked about that a bit on the meeting 2 weeks ago, but we can definitely talk more about it. That was mainly just an announcement and brief overview of the merge, but we have time if we want to keep talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two arms of the identity SIG, one being the kind of a strategic, forward-looking and surveying, broader field survey and broader field concerns, versus the detail-oriented work in the implementers group. Both are necessary, I feel, but the other one has kind of lapsed a little bit because some of it is just seen as just talk and not enough action. So hopefully there will be a good sort of synergy between these two activities, and getting the next week's speaker, the next 2 weeks away speaker, is part of a strategic sort of look at things. I hope he will do that. And that's about it. We had some fantastic talks in the working group earlier, but it has sort of fallen by the wayside because a lot of people are just more interested in doing things and getting involved in the details. Over.
And Vipin, just so you know, Char and I are talking about videos from previous identity implementers calls that we want to put onto the Identity SIG YouTube. So if you've got any demos or WG calls that you thought were great, let me know. I will try to find and grab those videos off the wiki and put them up on the YouTube as well.
There is one by Kim Cameron, who's passed away, unfortunately.
I can find that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very visionary talk, and that was done just weeks before he passed. And Kim has been a very influential person in this space for many, many years before it became fashionable, I suppose. So that's one at least. And then there's a talk by Sam, Dr. On Carey. I think his name is Smith, not Sam Smith.
Yeah, Sam Smith is the person working on Carey. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a talk by him maybe 2 years ago. There are all kinds of bits and bobs all around. Many of them are talk about the early days, are on the identity methods inside all of the things like Hyperledger Fabric, CA, Hyperledger, Hyperledger Sawtooth, and various other platforms that we host. We had surveys of their existing identity solutions, which are important. And then there was an attempt at a paper, which we hope to revive. It is more of a survey. There is a paper there is a talk by people in Life, the Global Legal Entity Identity Foundation, which.
Yeah, legal entity identifier, right.
Yes.
So that's
LEI.
Yeah.
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 There was a talk on that.
Right, because they're using carry and ACDC and stuff. Yep.
Yeah, but that's now. But when they gave the talk, it was just when they were stepping into that.
Oh,
space.
gotcha. Okay. Because more recently, I thought they presented, maybe it was just a trust over IP, like their kind of updated trust registry and stuff like that. Yeah, that explained how they're using carry and ACDC, the chain credentials.
Yeah, but they do support, huge number of enterprises today. I don't think they use these methods today. I'm not sure.
Right, you're right. They do support a lot of different ones, and I believe it was in one use case where they use the carry, but only because there was no. I think that was the case where there was no other layer one utility available for a trust registry where they use chain credentials. Instead of, I think that was the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's FATF is requiring adoption of LEI, and as such, I think a lot more people outside the United States are using that, and there may be a legal requirement to go to LEI by the UN agencies and so on. Anyway, that's another talk, which, at least for historical reasons, it should be important. But not just for historical reasons, because I think 80 to 90% of that stuff is being used today. The two things that are there, which are very important, are one is the governance, legal governance documents that are attached to the enterprises. The other one is to discover all the subsidiaries. So if you have one corporation, then all these hundreds and thousands of other corporations under it, subsidiaries of subsidiaries and so on. That's very key. And the jurisdictional documents are very key. These are an extension of the identity, let's say identity space in a sense, and then it goes into things like beneficial ownership, which is a very hot topic. So for all those reasons, LEI and glyph is very important.
Yeah, it
Over
would be
and out.
great to dedicate some calls to inviting speakers from those realms to talk about it.
Are you still in touch with Carla McKenna, Daniel?
Was that a question for Daniel?
Yeah. I mean,
Yep. Yeah, it had, yes. Not of late, but yes. I just saw her colleague last week in Berlin, but yeah, Carla, it's been a while, but yeah, happy to reach out.
and that was that Mr. Schneider?
Yeah,
Okay.
Andreas, right? Yeah, Schneider.
Yeah. I have both their contacts, and I haven't talked to them in a long time, but
Yeah, Andreas, I was talking with just last week. Yep.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. All right, that's all from my end. I think I've talked enough.
Yeah, thank you. I agree about having both the high level overview and strategic forward thinking and the detail oriented low level view as well. I think both are really beneficial, and it's wonderful that we've merged and we'll have both of them on this call. So, but yeah, I'll turn it over to Tim to close out the call.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Char. Yeah, that will be all from us. Quick reminders on just the upcoming things. One last time will be the Anon-Codes workshop, May 31st. Registration link is on the wiki, so be sure to check that out. And our next speaker will be Wenjing Chu from the Open Wallet Foundation, and that will be on the 1st of next month, so June 1st. So be sure to come back for that. Other than that, I appreciate everyone turning up and the excellent conversation that was had, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Have a good one.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Vipin. Thanks, everyone.